At 55, she became pregnant by a 32-year-old mafia boss. But then she found his secret file, Eliminate Before Childbirth. A vow from 1995 demands her death, while her husband, the paralyzed dragon, whom the child feeds with a spoon to the sound of a toy airplane, remains caught in the middle. Will he kill the woman carrying his daughter when his mother, Sun Hee, gives the final order? She reads them again. The cursor blinks. The air in the penthouse smells of sandalwood and cold metal, the way it always does after midnight. And for a long moment, Solange does not move. Her silver locks fall forward over the screen. Her hand rests flat against the desk, fingers spread wide, as if she is trying to hold the floor steady beneath her. The baby shifts. A small, unhurried kick, like a reminder. She is real. You are real. We are still here. The file is titled Liability Assessment, Park S. Park is her married name now. It has been her name for 11 months, long enough that she still sometimes writes her old name, Solange Beaumont, when she signs checks without thinking. Long enough that she knows the sound of Jae-hwan's footsteps on the marble and can tell his mood from the weight of each step. Long enough to love him. Long enough to grieve the man she thought she knew. She scrolls. The language is surgical. Date of assessment, subject profile, known associates, level of exposure to syndicate infrastructure. And then, near the bottom of the third page, a line that is worse than all the others. Subject demonstrates high pattern recognition capability. Recommend elimination prior to parturition to prevent transfer of operational knowledge to secondary parties. Secondary parties. Her daughter. Her unborn daughter, who she has already named in her heart, privately, in the hours before dawn, when Jae-hwan's breathing is slow and even, and she allows herself the private ceremony of being a mother. They are calling her daughter a secondary party. They are calling Solange herself a liability to be resolved. She closes the laptop with care. She does not slam it. She has spent 30 years in rooms where men decided the value of things, and she has learned that rage is loudest when it is quiet. Jae-hwan is in the East Wing. She knows this because she heard his wheelchair an hour ago, the soft friction of the wheels on the runner rug, moving away from her toward the room where he spends his nights looking at the city. He does that now. He sits in the dark and watches Seoul from 40 floors up, and she has told herself it is grief. It is adjustment. It is the process of a proud man learning to live in a body that no longer obeys him. She has told herself many things. She walks toward the East Wing. She is wearing his shirt, a white linen button-down that reaches her thighs, and her feet are bare on the cold floor. She does not rush. She is 55 years old, and she has learned the difference between urgency and panic. And this moment calls for the first, not the second. The door is open. He is there, exactly as she imagined. The wheelchair angled toward the floor-to-ceiling window. The lights of the city laid out below him like an empire that no longer answers to his hands. Jae-hwan Park, the Dragon of Seoul. At 32, he had controlled 3 countries' worth of money flow, and then a single bullet from the syndicate's own gun had taken the use of his legs, and she had been the reason the bullet missed his spine by 4 centimeters instead of 0. She had stepped in front of him. She still does not know exactly why. She had read the file. She had known what he planned. And then the doors of the parking structure had opened and the shooters had come, and something in her body had simply moved before her mind could debate the matter. Later, in the hospital, she had decided that it was the baby. The baby needed a father, and so her body had made the calculation that she could not consciously make. That is the story she tells herself. She stands in the doorway and says his name. He does not turn. "You found it," he says. His voice is flat, no question in it at all. "Yes," she says. The city hums 40 floors below. A plane crosses the sky in the far distance, its lights blinking red and white. "Then you know," he says. "I know that you wrote my name in a file next to the word eliminate," she says. "I know that you called our child a secondary party to be neutralized. I know that the man who asked me to marry him in a room full of white orchids wrote that document with his own hands. Yes, I know." He turns then. The wheelchair turns, precise and smooth, and she sees his face in the dark room and the window light. He is beautiful in the way that dangerous things are beautiful, all clean lines and controlled expression, and right now, that expression is something she cannot name. Not guilt, not relief. Something older and harder. The face of a man who has been caught not at a crime, but at the full extent of what he is. "It was written 8 months ago," he says. "Before." "Before what?" He does not answer. She crosses the room. She does not hurry, and she does not hesitate, and she stops directly in front of his chair, and she lets him see all of her. The silver hair, and the round belly, and the bare feet, and the way she is looking at him, which is the way you look at someone when you have decided to tell the truth. "I want you to say it," she says. "I want you to look at me and say what it was before." He looks at her for a long time. Then he says quietly, "Before I knew you." And she thinks, that is either the most honest thing he has ever said to me, or the most dangerous. She is still standing there, deciding which when the doors of the penthouse open behind her and the night stops being private. The woman who walks through those doors moves like someone who has never once been told no. She is 61 years old, and she is wearing a silk jacket the color of ivory, and her posture is so correct it looks engineered. Sun Hai Park, Jae-hwan's mother, the woman who sent flowers to their wedding, and a card written in her own hand that said, in English, "May you always know your place." Solange had kept the card. She keeps things like that. Evidence. Sun Hai does not look at Solange immediately. She looks at her son first, and the look is not maternal warmth. It is assessment, the same word from the same file, and Solange watches the older woman's eyes move over Jae-hwan in his wheelchair, the way an auditor moves over a balance sheet, noting losses, calculating what can still be salvaged. Then Sun Hai turns to Solange, and she smiles, and the smile is flawless. "You're up late," Sun Hai says. "The baby needs rest." "The baby and I were just talking," Solange says. Jae-hwan says nothing. He has gone somewhere inside himself, that shuttered, sealed place he retreats to when his mother is in the room, and Solange recognizes it now for what it is. Not deference, not love, something closer to a man who learned very young to go still when a predator was near. Sun Hai crosses to her son and puts one hand on his shoulder, and the gesture is practiced and precise, the touch of a woman who knows exactly how to perform tenderness without feeling any. She says something to him in Korean, low and fast, and Jae-hwan's jaw tightens, but he does not respond. "English, please," Solange says. Her voice is even. "In my home," Sun-Hai's smile does not change. "Of course. I was simply telling him that the board meeting has been rescheduled. Syndicate matters. Nothing that concerns you." "Everything in this house concerns me," Solange says. "How interesting," Sun-Hai says. "That you still think of it that way." She stays 40 minutes. She drinks tea that she brought herself in a thermos, as if she does not trust what is poured in this kitchen. And she talks about restructuring, about efficiency, about the importance of clear succession during a period of transition. She never once says the word paralyzed. She says transition the way other people say permanent. When she leaves, the sandalwood smell of the room has been replaced by something colder, something floral and chemical, like the inside of a funeral home. Jae-hwan does not speak for a long time after she goes. Then he says, "You should sleep." "I'm not tired." Solange, "Don't," she says. "Don't say my name like that, like you're managing me." He turns the wheelchair toward the window again, away from her, and that motion, that deliberate turning of his back, is the thing that finally cracks something open in her chest. She has been patient. She has been steady. She has been, for 11 months, exactly the woman she told herself she needed to be in this situation, which is a woman who does not flinch and does not run and does not perform her pain where anyone can use it against her. But she is also 55 years old, and she is 7 months pregnant, and she is standing barefoot in a dark room with a man who had her name in a file under the word eliminate. And she is tired in a way that sleep cannot touch. "You told me it was before," she says. "You said before you knew me. So tell me when you knew me, Jae-hwan. Tell me what moment it changed. Because I need to know if I am standing here for a reason or if I am simply the most elaborate mistake of my life." He is quiet for so long, she thinks he will not answer. Then he says, "The night you read me that letter." She knows the night he means. 4 months into their arrangement, which is what she had called it then. Their arrangement, the legal structure that gave him cover and gave her a salary that was, frankly, extraordinary. She had found a letter in the pocket of a suit she was taking to the dry cleaner. It was from his father, written when Jae-hwan was 9 years old, and it was a good letter, a letter full of the kind of love that men of that generation did not say out loud, and she had not meant to read it, but she had. And then she had gone and found him in his office, and she had read it to him out loud because she thought he should hear it in his father's words, rather than see it on paper, alone. He had not cried. Men like Jae-hwan do not cry where anyone can see. But he had been very still, and when she finished, he had said thank you in a voice she had never heard from him before or since, and she had understood in that moment that she was in serious trouble. That was 4 months in, she says now. "You wrote the file 8 months ago." "Yes, so you knew me," she says, "and you still left it there." The silence that follows is the worst silence she has ever sat inside. "I was afraid," he says, finally. She waits. "Of what you were becoming to me," he says. "It is easier to have a protocol, even a protocol you never intend to execute. It is easier to have an exit than to admit you have no intention of using it. She stands very still. The baby moves again, slow and certain. Jae Hwan, she says, your mother has already activated something. I don't know the full shape of it yet, but I can feel it the way I can feel a change in weather before the rain comes. And if I am going to stand in this house and protect this child, I need you to stop retreating into that chair like it's a fortress and start talking to me like I am your partner and not your liability. He looks at her then, fully and directly, and she sees something in his face that she has not seen before. Not the dragon, not the businessman, not the man who controls 3 countries' worth of money flow. Something younger and more frightened and more real. She is taking over, he says quietly. She has been since the hospital. I can no longer access the primary accounts. 2 of my lieutenants have stopped returning my calls. She moves fast when she thinks something is decided. She thinks you are finished, Solange says. Yes. Are you? He does not answer. That silence is different from the others. This one does not feel like retreat. It feels like a man standing at the edge of a decision. The next morning she wakes to find his side of the bed empty and cold, and on the nightstand, where he sometimes leaves instructions for the household staff, there is instead a single index card written in his handwriting. It says in English, the 1995 oath, find the watch. She reads it twice, then she folds it and puts it inside her bra, against her skin, where no one will think to look. She is 55 years old. She has been underestimated in every room she has ever entered. She picks up the index card's meaning like a woman who has been reading between lines her whole life and carries it with her into the day. The watch is in the safe behind the painting of the Han River, which is exactly where Solange expected it to be. Because Jae Hwan is a man who keeps the things that matter to him close and hidden and disguised as decoration. She has known the combination for 6 months. He gave it to her the morning after she came home from her first prenatal appointment alone, because he had been in a meeting he could not leave, and she had sat in the waiting room surrounded by women half her age and felt something she had not expected, which was not loneliness, but its sharper cousin. The feeling of being a category that the world has not yet made room for. He had come home that evening and handed her a card with the combination written on it and said nothing at all. And that had been more than most men would have done. And she had loved him a little more for it and hated herself a little for that too. The watch is a Patek Philippe, slim and silver, and it looks like money and nothing else. But she turns it over and she finds the case back engraved with a date, November 14th, 1995, and below the date, 4 Korean characters she does not recognize. She photographs them with her phone and sends them to a translation service she uses for her legal work, the encrypted kind that does not store queries. While she waits for the translation, she goes to the kitchen because she needs to eat and because the housekeeper, Mrs. Yoon, is there with her granddaughter, who is 4 years old and visits on Thursdays and has the habit of treating the entire penthouse as a personal kingdom. The child's name is Hana. She has her grandmother's eyes and a complete disregard for the concept of quiet, and she is currently sitting on the kitchen counter eating a rice cake and explaining to no one in particular that airplanes work because they are friends with the wind. Solange sits at the island and accepts a cup of tea from Mrs. Yoon and watches Hana, and for a few minutes the weight of the watch in her cardigan pocket and the index card still pressed against her ribs and the document on the laptop, and all of it recedes slightly. Just slightly. The way pain recedes when something genuinely beautiful asks for your full attention. Then she hears the wheelchair. Jae-hwan comes into the kitchen doorway and stops. He does not come into the kitchen often. The kitchen is informal, and he is a man who has spent his whole adult life performing formality as armor. And something about the low light and the smell of rice and the child on the counter seems to catch him off guard. He looks at Hana, and Hana looks at him with the frank, uncomplicated assessment that belongs only to small children. And then she holds out what remains of her rice cake in his direction. "You want some?" Hana says. He does not answer. His jaw is tight. He is, Solange realizes, trying very hard not to be moved, because being moved is a thing he does not know how to survive right now, when everything else has been stripped from him. "She is asking you a question," Solange says quietly. He looks at the child. Then he moves the wheelchair forward, into the kitchen, and he takes the piece of rice cake from Hana's outstretched hand. He does not eat it immediately. He holds it. "Now you have to open your mouth," Hana says, with the patience of someone who has fed unwilling people before. Like an airplane. Mrs. Yoon makes a sound that is not quite a laugh and turns toward the stove. Solange does not look away. Jae-hwan opens his mouth. Hana makes the sound, low and humming, and guides the piece of rice cake forward like she is landing something small and important, and he eats it, and for one single unguarded moment, the dragon of soul looks like a man who has not been taken care of in a very long time and did not know how badly he needed it. Solange's phone buzzes. The translation. The 4 characters on the caseback of the watch read, "Blood clears blood." She takes a breath. She looks at the watch. Then she looks at the engraving again, and she notices something she missed before. A hairline seam along the inner edge of the caseback, the kind that suggests a second layer. She presses her thumbnail along the seam, and the inner back releases, and inside, pressed flat against the movement of the watch, is a square of film. Microfiche, old. The kind that requires a reader, but she has one because she is a woman who has spent 30 years handling documents that people wanted, kept quiet, and she has a portable microfiche reader in the filing cabinet in her office because that is the kind of woman she is. She excuses herself. 40 minutes later, she is sitting on the floor of her office with her back against the desk because the chair suddenly felt too formal for what she is reading, and the pages printed from the reader are spread around her in a half circle. The 1995 oath was not a syndicate founding document. It was a contract between 2 families, the Park family and the Beaumont family, Solange's family. Her father's name is on the second page, and she traces it with one finger, the careful signature of a man who believed. He was signing a partnership agreement and did not know, could not have known, that the woman sitting across the table from him had already arranged for his death to be executed 6 weeks later. Sun Hai Park, not Jae-hwan's father, Sun Hai. In 1995, she was 30 years old and already running the financial architecture of what would become the syndicate. and she had needed the Beaumont family's port connections and their silence. And the easiest way to acquire both was to eliminate the man who held them and absorb his infrastructure in the confusion of his death. Solange's father had been found in his car in December of 1995. The investigation had gone nowhere. Solange had been 20 at the time, and she had spent 35 years believing it was a random crime. She sits on the floor with the pages around her, and she does not cry. She is past crying. What she feels is older and steadier than grief. It is the specific clarity that comes when the last missing piece of your life's shape finally locks into place, and the picture is monstrous, but at least it is complete. The oath clause is on page 4. It states that if any surviving member of the Beaumont line produces an heir with a member of the Park line, that heir becomes the sole inheritor of both families' combined holdings and cannot be controlled by either parent alone. The heir breaks the original power structure entirely, which means her daughter, unborn, already named in secret, is not a liability to the syndicate. She is the end of it. Sun High does not want the baby eliminated because she is a loose end. She wants her eliminated because she is a conclusion. Solange folds the pages. She puts the watch in her pocket. She gets up off the floor, the way a woman gets up when her body is heavy and her mind is clear and she has somewhere to be. She walks back to the kitchen. Jae-hwan is still there, and Hana is still there, and Hana is now attempting to explain to him the correct way to fold a paper crane, and he is watching her hands with an expression that is not quite softness, but is the thing that comes just before it. Jae-hwan, Solange says. She puts the folded pages on the table in front of him. Your mother killed my father, and our daughter is the only person on this earth who can legally end everything she built. Read page 4. The room goes very quiet. Hana looks up from her paper. Is it time for the airplane again? She asks. Chapter 4. He reads page 4 3 times. She knows this because she counts. She stands at the kitchen window with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea that has gone cold, and she watches the city below, and she listens to the sound of pages turning and the particular quality of silence that belongs to a man whose entire understanding of his own life is being rewritten in real time. When he finishes, he sets the pages down flat on the table. He does not speak immediately. Hana has fallen asleep on the kitchen bench with her paper crane clutched in one fist, and Mrs. Yoon has covered her with a dish towel folded into a small blanket, and the kitchen is warm and impossibly ordinary for what is happening inside it. She told me he died in a car accident, Jae-hwan says. My father. She said it was retaliation from a rival family. She used his death to justify everything, every expansion, every elimination, every oath she made us swear. All of it was built on a lie she constructed herself. Yes, Solange says. And your father? Yes. He is quiet again. Then he says, she brought our families together on purpose. She knew who you were when I hired you. She knew the entire time. Solange turns from the window. Did you? The question lands the way she intended it to. Cleanly and without mercy. Because she needs the truth more than she needs comfort. And she has always known the difference. No, he says. And then, because he is Jae-hwan Park and he does not leave room for doubt when the stakes are this high, He says it again. No, I found your resume through a legitimate placement firm. I did not know your surname connected to the 1995 document until 4 months ago when I pulled the original oath file during the account audit. By then, you were already. He stops. He looks at her. You were already everything. She holds that. She holds it carefully, the way you hold something fragile and necessary. 4 months ago, she says, when you wrote the liability file, I panicked, he says, and the word sounds strange coming from him, angular and unnatural, like a word in a foreign language he is using for the first time. I am not asking you to forgive that. I am telling you it is the truth. I saw your name in the oath document, and I saw what it meant for our child, and I wrote a protocol I never intended to execute because the alternative was admitting that I was afraid of losing both of you, and I did not know how to exist inside that fear. The baby moves, long and slow, a full body roll, the kind that takes Solange's breath for a moment and then returns it. Okay, she says. He looks up. Okay, she says again. I believe you. And now we have approximately 48 hours before your mother realizes you have found the watch, because she has had this penthouse monitored since the hospital, and she will see the safe was opened. So I need you to tell me exactly what you mean by ghost in the machine, because that is what you told the lieutenant in Busan 6 weeks ago, and I need to know if it means what I think it means. He goes very still. You heard that call. I hear most things, she says. I am 55 years old, and I have been invisible in rooms my entire life, and I learned a long time ago that invisibility is not a disadvantage if you are paying attention. For the first time in weeks, something moves across his face that is not pain or pride, or the controlled blankness of a man holding himself together by force. It is something lighter, not quite a smile. The shape a smile makes before it decides to arrive. The ghost in the machine, he says, is a back-channel access point I built into the syndicate's primary financial architecture 7 years ago. A dead man's switch. If I am ever removed from operational control by force rather than by choice, it activates automatically and begins a cascade sequence that reroutes all primary holdings to a series of shell accounts I control independently of the syndicate's oversight structure. It takes 72 hours to complete. My mother does not know it exists. Solange sets down the cold mug. Activate it now, she says, before she gives the order. If I activate it now, it is not a dead man's switch. It is a declaration of war. Jae-hwan, she says, she already declared war. In 1995, she declared it before either of us knew we existed. The only question is whether we answer. He looks at her for a long moment. Then he takes his phone from the arm of the wheelchair and he opens an application that looks like a standard calendar, and he navigates to a date 3 years in the future. And he presses it and holds it, and the screen pulses once, white, and goes back to normal. 72 hours, he says. 72 hours, she agrees. What follows is not a battle in the way that word usually means. There are no guns in the penthouse, no men in black moving through corridors. What happens is quieter and more total. Over the next 3 days, while Sun High Park attends 2 board meetings and a charity luncheon in an ivory jacket and believes she is consolidating her son's empire, the empire dissolves beneath her hands like salt in warm water, account by account, access point by access point. The lieutenants who had stopped returning Jae-hwan's calls begin receiving transfers they cannot trace and instructions they cannot ignore. And one by one, the architecture Sun Hai spent 30 years building simply stops responding to her commands. Solange watches it happen from the desk in the home office, where she has set up a secondary monitor at Jae-hwan's direction. And she understands for the first time the full shape of what he is, which is not a man who rules through violence, but through the patient, precise control of systems. And she thinks that is perhaps the most dangerous kind of ruler, the kind who does not need to raise his voice because the structure itself obeys him. On the morning of the third day, Jae-hwan asks her what color she would like the curtains in the house. She looks at him. What house? He shows her a property listing on his phone. It is a house 40 minutes outside the city, in a neighborhood where the streets are narrow and tree-lined, and the buildings are old enough to have character. The listing photograph shows the front room, and the light coming through the windows is the color of late afternoon, warm and unhurried, and the curtains in the photograph are yellow. Yellow, she says. He nods. He closes the listing. Jae-hwan, she says. Yes. Are you smiling? He does not answer for a moment. Then he says, I am attempting it. She laughs. It is the first time she has laughed in 3 weeks, and it comes from somewhere real, somewhere low and warm. And she puts her hand on her stomach because the baby is moving again, and she wants them both to feel it at the same time. He reaches over and puts his hand next to hers, and they stay like that for a moment, in the morning light, in the quiet that belongs to people who have come through something together and are still standing. They move to the house with the yellow curtains 11 days later. The nursery faces east. Mrs. Yoon comes with them. Hana visits on Thursdays and has already claimed the window seat in the front room as her personal territory. And no one argues with her about this because she is 4 years old and entirely correct. Jae-hwan does not walk. He may never walk. He has stopped waiting for that to change and started building a life that does not require it. And Solange watches him do this with a steady, clear-eyed love of a woman who has never once confused a man's strength with his ability to stand upright. It is a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks after the move, and the house smells of rice and something baking and the particular clean smell of a place that is being lived in rather than maintained. And Solange is at the kitchen table, writing in the journal she keeps for the baby, the record of days she wants her daughter to have someday, when her phone lights up on the table beside her. Unknown number. She picks it up. The message reads, "The 1995 oath has a second clause. Your daughter's birth activates it automatically. There is nothing your husband can dissolve that will stop what comes next. I built this house, Solange. I built it around both of you. Ask him what he has not told you yet." Below the message, a photograph. It is a document. It is dated 3 weeks ago. It bears Jae-hwan's signature. Solange goes very still. The kitchen is warm. The yellow curtains move in the draft from the window. In the next room, she can hear the soft turn of a wheelchair and the particular silence of a man who has just realized she is no longer writing. She does not call his name. She sits with the phone in her hand, and she looks at his signature on the document she has never seen before. And she thinks about the night he said before, "I knew you." And she thinks about the watch. and the letter from his father, and the way he put his hand next to hers on the morning of the third day. And she thinks about all the ways a woman can be right about a man and wrong about him at the same time. The wheelchair comes to the kitchen doorway. She can feel him there without looking. She looks up. His face tells her everything and nothing, the way it always has, the way it probably always will. How long, she says. Have you known about the second clause? The yellow curtains move. The baby kicks. The house is very quiet. Then the front door opens. Sun High steps inside, her ivory jacket immaculate, her smile the same flawless instrument it has always been. She looks at Solange's rounded belly with an expression that is polite and absolute and entirely without mercy, and she says, in a voice as smooth and cold as the inside of a vault, Jae Hwan was always a poor executor. It is fortunate that I am here to complete the liability assessment myself. Solange freezes. Her fingers go cold around the phone. On the screen, the unknown number sends one final message. Your daughter is the last key to activating the 1995 oath. Your husband has already signed the order. She looks at Jae Hwan. He looks at her. And the question that has lived inside this entire story from the very first night, from the file and the file's cold words and the 40 floors and the wheelchair and the watch and the microfiche and the yellow curtains and the hand placed next to hers, the question finally speaks itself aloud in the space between them. Was any of it real? And if it was, is it enough? If you feel this woman's courage in your own chest right now, if you have ever stood in a room where someone decided your value and been entirely wrong about their conclusion, then you know exactly what Solange is carrying in this moment. She is 55 years old, and she is not invisible, and she is not finished, and she is not going anywhere. Hit like right now if you believe her. Write in the comments what you would do if you were standing in that kitchen. And share this story with every woman in your life who has ever been called a liability and proved the whole room wrong.